For my version of the Florida History Project with A Land Remembered, I chose to do Pioneer Life in Florida. Here are a couple of pioneer life quotes from A Land Remembered. The first 2 years in Florida had been a time of near starvation. He cleared a garden and planted his precious seeds, but the poor, sandy soil offered little in return, and the wild animals were a constant problem when plants did break through the sunlight. Deer, turkey, and hogs were plentiful in the woods, but shells were so hard to come by that he could only kill when it was absolute necessities to survive. That's from chapter 2, page 14. Also from that page, there were many times when Tobias thought otherwise, but they did survive. He learned many things by trial and error, and passing strangers told him of others. So this really demonstrates the hardships and tough times of pioneer life in Florida during this time period. So just to break down pioneer life in Florida, what it looks like from my research, in the late 19th century, residents of northern states began to move to Florida to escape harsh winters, establish homes, and explore nature and environment. The home was the center of family life. This is where families in pioneer Florida nurtured and cared for their children, preparing and eating meals together, entertaining guests, and doing household chores. The father of the house typically cleared the land, built the house, plowed and planted gardens for eating, and hunted the surrounding areas for game to eat. The mother of the house had all the responsibilities of daily housework. Usually, the mother did things such as knitting, quilting, cooking, butchering, etc. The children of the home typically went to school when old enough. When not in school, they did their daily chores. Boys became skilled hunters with their fathers, and girls enjoyed playing with their dolls around the house. Children's schools were built with logs and boards. They could often accommodate more than 20 children. Church activities played a big role for pioneers in Florida. Sunday was strictly reserved for church, a day of rest and singing. Timeline: Before Pioneer Life Event. In A Land Remembered, before migrating to Florida and becoming a pioneer there, Tobias had owned 40 acres of red Georgia clay. He tried to farm the clay, but didn't have any success. He sold the land and his cabin and bought whatever he could afford to take with him in his cabin. He crossed into Florida and traded his horses for a pair of oxen named Nip and Tuck and a guinea cow. In real life, harsh events such as the Civil War and brutal weather, along with a desire to improve their health and seek adventure, caused the first pioneers from the North and Midwest to migrate down to Florida in the latter part of the 19th century. Timeline: During Pioneer Life Event. In The Land Remembered, the cattle drives were a perfect description of pioneer life in Florida. Tobias and crew had a plethora of issues to deal with, from mosquitoes and wolves to keeping track of all of their cattle. Emma was busy cooking up meals for the boys, while Zek helped his father with the hunting and the cattle. It was a great moment for Tobias and his family and friends when Captain Hendry paid $16 a head for his cattle. After all of their struggles and hardships, the crew finally had a taste of success. In real life, Florida pioneers did several things to keep themselves afloat when it seemed as if they were cut off from the rest of the world. Early settlers became very gritty and determined, building their own homes and hunting and cooking their own food. Timeline: After Pioneer Life Event. In A Land Remembered, Sol eventually leaves the homestead and transitions to a different kind of life, away from the pioneer life that his family had built. He settles on some land near Miami and creates a produce company, a real estate company, and a bank. Sol has a bit of a rift with his half-brother, Toby, with Sol prioritizing his companies and Toby prioritizing the preservation of land. Eventually, the two make peace, and Sol dies in Punta Rasa in 1968. In real life, after pioneer life in Florida, the state began advancing in other areas. The first regularly scheduled commercial airline was established in Tampa and St. Petersburg in 1914. World War I began, and Florida became an important site for military training and shipbuilding. Additionally, the early 20th century Florida land boom began during this time. This image here shows a typical Florida pioneer family. The photo was taken from the Florida State Photographic Archives in Tallahassee, Florida. This image shows a Florida pioneer family in the wilderness. This photo is taken from the Florida State Genealogical Society. Lastly, this image shows typical Florida pioneer woman. This image was taken from a book cover by Jeannie Blanton Trimble. Importance to Florida's history. Florida pioneers are so important to Florida's history because they laid the foundation for what the state was to become. Florida pioneers migrated there with hardly anything. There were so many unknowns about the wilderness, what they would eat, and how they would survive. They had to battle wild animals, millions of mosquitoes, and very few avenues to transport or receive goods. Florida pioneers built their own homes, made their own furniture, hunted and cooked their own meals, and made their own way of life. These pioneers led the way for future generations to make advancements to make the life for Floridians much easier. Here are some references used as primary sources. The first is an image by a pioneer artist showing the hardship of dealing with mosquitoes. And the second is from an interview with a Florida pioneer, Ella Gear DeMick. She says, "This place was nothing but a wilderness when we came here in 1876, but how beautiful that wilderness was. When my husband landed from his sailboat, he crawled on his hands and knees through the jungle to find a place to build our house. The people who first settled Palm Beach were not people of means, no means at all, hardly, but they didn't need money much." And listed here are my references for the secondary sources. For my interactive student activity, I decided to work off the standard SS.4.A.4.2, which is Describe Pioneer Life in Florida. In this activity, students will create a flyer trying to attract people from all over the country to move to be a pioneer in Florida. It is their job to make the flyer as attractive as possible, outlining the benefits of becoming a Florida pioneer. They should include quotes from A Land Remembered and be as creative as they wish. The students will be free to use technology, such as computers and iPads, and digital images to complete their flyer. Directions for the students. Using examples from the text A Land Remembered in your research about Florida pioneers, create a tourism flyer showing the benefits of Florida pioneer life to attract travelers from all over the country. You may create a digital flyer or draw one by hand. Materials that will be needed are pencil, paper, colored pencils or crayons, and a computer. Also, the students will need the A Land Remembered text. So here is an activity that I want to model for you all to kind of give you an idea of the activity you will be completing for this presentation. So as we can see here, the goal here is to create a digital flyer trying to attract tourists to come be a Florida pioneer. So based on what we've seen both in the presentation and what you can do with your own research, with your primary and secondary sources, you want to come up with points showing why people should move to Florida to be a Florida pioneer. So just to put an image here, I use the We Want You poster just to kind of set the mood, give it a little bit of a fun feel. So we want you to be a Florida pioneer. Also, I included an image of some oranges. Oranges are obviously important to Florida, and they were mentioned quite a few times in the Land Remembered text as well. So that's a great thing to add there, and there's plenty of other things you can add, different kind of images you can add as well. Just be as creative as possible. For my bullet points, I remember I had mentioned the freezing cold winters being a reason why people from the north especially migrated on down to Florida to be a Florida pioneer. So I put no more freezing cold winters. Second, there's plenty of land to explore and own. Basically, you just walk around and find land and lay claim to it. It wasn't until later in the story that Zech started to buy the land and buying the deeds. So there's plenty of land to explore and own in Florida. You just have to come on down. Next, start your own cattle company. Obviously, that was evident in A Land Remembered as well. And that family, the McIvy family, wasn't the only cattle drivers there. So, as we can see from what they got paid from Captain Henry, you can make a lot of money there. So, if you know what you're doing, you can start your own cattle company and make a lot of money. Lastly, I put attend a Christmas frolic. They may have them around the country elsewhere, but they're probably not as fun as the one we saw with Zech and Glenda in the A Land Remembered text. And just to include a quote in there, we want to quote something from the text that's going to make someone in that time period migrate down to Florida to be a pioneer. So the one I chose was Tobias McIvy said it best. Nobody will ever fence this land. There's too much of it. This right here ain't a drop in the bucket. There ain't no man ever even seen all of it. The Lord put it here for everybody to use. So this quote is basically saying there's so much land. Come on down, migrate down to Florida, get you some of this land. It's for everyone to use and everyone to take care of. So that's what we're looking for in the assignment. You can do it digitally, you can hand draw it, just be as creative as you want. Feel free to do additional research online, even get some more primary or secondary sources, pick your own images, pick your own bullet points that you want to use, and just all around, I just want it to be as interactive as possible, and as fun as possible for all of you.